My wife cheating on me after marriage and having a child out of wedlock. I hated my father. When I was little, I had a favorite stuffed doll. It was affectionately called my Bieber. I carried my Bieber with me everywhere. I loved that doll so much that I couldn't part with it no matter who tried to take it away from me. My cousins always tormented and teased me by playing keep away. But I knew the secret to getting the Bieber back. All I had to do was cry, and the boys would quickly stop playing their games. One night I left the Bieber in the yard. Shortly after dinner, I remembered that I had left my favorite doll. We lived in the countryside at the time. When I say it was dark outside, I mean pitch blackness. It was the kind of darkness where you walk down a dark alley, and who knows what evil villains lurk in the dark. These evil villains could range from scary monsters to zombies to ferocious animals with huge pointy teeth. And to make matters worse, dark storm clouds were coming. My Bieber was about to be washed away by the rain. But fear not. I knew what to do. All I had to do was cry, and I'm sure my dad will come out, defy the darkness and all the monsters that lurk in the shadows, defeat the coming storm and bring back my dolly. After all, no one likes it when a girl cries. All the boys melt and do what I want when I cry. Not my father. No, he had the nerve to tell me to go on my own. Despite all my tears, sobs, and pouty lips, my father refused. How could he do that to me? Didn't he love me? And to think he had the nerve to ask me, if you love her so much, why did you leave her in the yard? Before I could answer that question, he said, if you really love your Bieber, you'll face your worst nightmares to save her. Well, I'll show him. I stomped straight to my room, slammed the door, and cried all night. My mom tried to comfort me. I could even hear them yelling downstairs. Mommy knew the rule about what boys should do when girls cry. With each lightning strike and thunderous roar, my heart broke. My dad doesn't love me enough to go after my Bieber. Didn't he know he had to do it? I loved my Bieber. It wasn't my fault I forgot about it in the yard. Needless to say, when morning came, I didn't have my doll. Okay, I'll just go and give my dad a silent punishment myself. I've seen my mom do it many times. I even heard her talking on the phone with other boys, making fun of my dad, even though I didn't understand everything she was saying. She could even make him sleep on the couch when she was really mad at him. I couldn't wait to learn how to do that. I was sure my mom would teach me these abilities when I got older. When I went outside and looked for it, I just couldn't find it. The storm must have washed it away. I cried again. But now. My father answered my tears. He came up to me and asked me what was wrong. I refused to answer him. I just crossed my arms over my chest and gave him an angry, pouty expression. Frowning my eyebrows and pursing my lips, I just stared at him. I've seen my mom look like that when she's angry. Maybe this would work for me, not a chance in hell. Dad just laughed and told me to go get the mail. I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let him make fun of me like my cousins did. I was going to be just like my mom. She just had more practice at it. Though I'll admit, when my father raised his voice and demanded I go get the mail, I lost my resolve. The last thing I wanted was to be flogged. Not that my father had ever raised his hand at me, but the tone of his voice was intimidating enough. So I walked down the gravel path to the mailbox. On the way, I kicked a rock or two, pouted my lips, and muttered curses about how I wished my dad would leave forever, or that he needed to stay in the dark with all those monsters. We'll see how he likes it. It was my favorite stuffed toy, and he didn't care. As I walked over to the mailbox, the tears flowed even harder than before. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of joy. In the mailbox, protected from the torrential rain of the night before, lay my precious Bieber. It had not been destroyed. It had not been lost. She was safe and sound and back in my arms. I would never let that happen again. I promised Bieber over and over again that I truly loved her and would never forget her again. I hated my father. While I learned that the crying game wouldn't work on my dad, my mom refused to give up. The screaming didn't stop. Doors slammed, dishes shattered, and the phone calls when my dad wasn't home increased. I never really heard what my mom was saying because she was always whispering on the phone. But I could hear her giggling. Plus, she always hung up the phone when my dad came into the house. One night, there was no screaming or yelling. There was no crying or tears. Mom just went into her room, packed a couple suitcases, and left the house. Waiting for Mom in the driveway was some strange man in a red pickup truck. She threw the suitcases into the back of the truck, climbed into the cab, and never looked back. I couldn't believe it. Mom left? Who's gonna teach me the rules of the crying game? Who would show me the powers she used on my dad to make him sleep on the couch? She had to teach me everything. Of course, my father spent hours telling me that her leaving wasn't my fault, that it was a problem between him and Mom. He said they both loved me, but they needed some time to work out their differences. I was so mad at him for making my mom leave. I even spat back at him. If you really loved her, you would have faced your worst nightmares and gone after her. Let me tell you something about my father. He was a big man, at least in the eyes of a child. He was strong. When a child first sees this giant break down and cry, it changes everything. My mom showed me that he had a tender side. He was weak. I think that was the word she used on the phone to one of her buddies. Unfortunately, I was still just developing the abilities my mom had. Even though my parents divorced, I still had to stay with my dad. I begged and pleaded to live with my mom. After all, my father was a weakling. Besides, I needed to find out what other powers girls had over boys. My father insisted I stay with him out of spite. He made sure I never saw my mom in court, or during divorce proceedings, or even when I talked to the judge. He made sure she was never there. In fact, he only went so far as to make me spend one Christmas. All of my other friends who went through divorce said they loved Christmas. Instead of having one family Christmas, they have two. Some of them told stories about how one parent always felt guilty and smothered them with gifts, while the other gave a few gifts, but they were very expensive. Why did I never get that? Why didn't I have that power? Look, it was all my father's doing. If I had lived with my mom, I would have known how to spend 2 Christmases. I hated my dad. When I got older and went to middle school, I hated doing homework. I hated going to class, especially biology. Do you know how disgusting it is to dissect a worm? It was even worse when we had to cut up a pig. The stench was kind of ferocious. It was like going to the boys' locker room after soccer practice. Who cares about anatomy? Who cares about recessive genes and chromosomes? It's not like you hear people talk about it in real life. Fortunately, I've discovered that there are others who hate their parents as much as I hated my father. I would have every chance to spend time away from home and away from my father. Even though I knew my friends hated their parents, I envied them. I would live in those huge houses. They had the latest gadgets, computers, and everything. My dad never had anything like that. That was another reason to hate my dad. He didn't buy me all the cool stuff. That was another one of my losses. No. Going on dates was the worst. I went on a date with a really cute guy. He did things that made my heart beat faster, whether it was speeding through town at almost 100 miles an hour or breaking into places we weren't supposed to be. The danger and excitement made my heart race. I was sandwiched between fear and that adrenaline rush, like being on a roller coaster. So when the boy kissed me, it felt like my whole world spun. My head was floating in 7th heaven. This boy was taking me to heights I never thought possible. Unfortunately, my father had a way to bring me back down to earth quickly. When the boy dropped me off at the house, my father was already waiting for us. He had a pair of shotguns that he had so conveniently cleaned when we pulled into the driveway. He made me go up to my room so he could chat with my boyfriend. Needless to say, I never went out with that boy again. From that very night on, boys refused to date me out of fear of my father. I knew crying on the stairs wouldn't help me. If I was out all night, he would just come looking for me. This was even more embarrassing than the incident with the gun cleaning. I couldn't believe my father was doing this to me. He was ruining my life. Just because my mom left him for some hot guy doesn't mean he can take it out on me. But there comes a point in a kid's life when he starts to look at his parents differently. While under house arrest for another violation of my father's rules, I decided to clean out one of the closets. After all, it was a place I could put my clothes and shoes. While I may not have had a lot of the latest toys, gadgets, and electronic devices like all my friends, I had all the clothes I wanted. Walmart may not have been as fancy as Aeropostale or Abercrombie and Fitch, but buying 3 t-shirts for the price of one made sense to me. I worked hard for the money, and I wasn't about to throw it away on a blouse that would be out of style by next year. Okay, maybe my dad's teaching wasn't so bad. This closet was in desperate need of a purge. Time must have forgotten about this place because there were cobwebs everywhere. Okay, maybe not everywhere, but there was definitely a lot of it. The kind that you can't see, that gets in your hair and sticks to you no matter how many times you try to get it off. Some of the clothes hanging in that closet were definitely from the time warp. I couldn't believe that people could actually wear some of these things on purpose. Putting old clothes in trash bags so they could be given to Goodwill, I found my parents' wedding album and some other mementos. Looking through the album, despite the outdated fashions and long-forgotten hairstyles, my mom looked gorgeous in her white wedding dress. Her eyes were filled with love for my father. In addition, my father, who never wore a tie or jacket, looked spectacular in his rented tuxedo. Picture after picture brought back memories of when my parents were together, when they were in love. But just like the faded photos and dust-covered scrapbook, it was so long ago, and yet seeing my father in a much happier state of mind was different. There was no sparkle in his eyes, no spring in his gait in the last few years since Mom had left. The only time I saw a glimmer of that reaction was when I received some sort of award from school, no matter how silly it was. Regardless of the function or reason, my dad was there to cheer me up. In my opinion, he was doing it to embarrass me to no end. But after looking at those pictures, my mind began to wonder if I was seeing everything clearly enough, especially since I had never seen my mom at any of these events. Putting aside the photo album, I came across a collection of letters. Judging by the size of the container, it contained a ton of love letters. It's amazing how sentimental they can be. It's not like nowadays when people post their Facebook status or tweet about their feelings for someone or even send a face. No, those emails were long and stretched out. They even had these funny things on them called stamps and postal dates. I guess that's what my teachers were talking about when they talked about the Pony Express. It may have only been a month, but I can't believe how much I love you. I can see the sun shining in your hair and your smile warms my heart. Your beautiful brown eyes bewitched me. With one word, I would reach all the way to the heavens and pluck a shining star just for you. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I would go to all ends of the earth to bring back your golden fleece. Your beauty is incomparable, and the fact that you even cherish the thought of loving me back is very much like Aphrodite and Hephaestus. You're my Venus. You're my Juliet. I see myself living my whole life by your side. This is just an excerpt from one of my father's love letters. They were long and vivid. My father was such a romantic back then. What happened to that magic? What happened to that spark? Obviously, my mom loved those letters because she saved so many of them. However, after quickly looking at the envelopes in the other bundle and the handwriting written on them, I noticed something had changed, not only in the handwriting, but also in the tone of the letter. I can't wait to see your body again. I want to make love to you. I love you. Those letters in the back of the container were very different. They were short. They focused on physical sex rather than emotional love. They used vulgar language rather than poetic expressions of love. Yet the author used the word, I love you. Why were they at my mom's house? It certainly wasn't written by my father. To make matters worse, these letters were dated sometime after my parents' wedding. What's going on? The bundle of first letters were romantic and sweet and could melt a girl's heart. They focused on love and living together. The second bundle of letters were rude and unpleasant and focused on the physical and vulgar. The grammatical and spelling errors were enough to make me vomit. My stomach twisted, however, when I came across the latest find in this walk-in closet. It was from a lab in California. The contents of that letter changed my life forever. It changed everything but one thing. I hated my father. How could he keep this secret from me? Although if I really thought about it, it shouldn't have come as a surprise. My father wore his hair high and tight. It was dark brown. My mom always loved the way her long brown hair fell down over her shoulders in dark curls. Even in wedding photos, their brown eyes glowed with love and happiness. Maybe my blonde hair and blue eyes were just recessive genes. That's what they taught in biology. How could my father be so mean and hide the truth from me? The official letter said I wasn't my father's daughter. How could he do this to me? Why did he hide my real father from me? He must have made my mom not tell me anything. I never knew he wasn't my real father. After everything he did for me, I can't believe he could lie. He made me call him Daddy. I needed answers, and I certainly couldn't trust a man who had kept it from me my whole life. No, I needed to find my mom and make her tell me what was going on. Maybe then she could explain how she could have married an evil monster like my father. Tracking her down took more effort than I thought. I called my grandparents, but they hadn't seen her since she left my father. All the aunts and uncles didn't seem too interested in her whereabouts. I was about ready to give up when, while reading the newspaper, I came across a police report. There had been a domestic disturbance at one of the trailer parks, and it listed the name of my mom and some other guy. I'm finally going to get some answers. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I was hoping that the heavens would open up and everything bad in my life would be destroyed, that my mom's house would become utopia and I could escape the evil that lurks in my own home. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Instead, the front yard of this trailer park was littered with dirt and trash. Had the owner been running a junkyard or just holding a rummage sale for the past 2 years? The grass was either dead or overgrown. My father would have had a stroke if he had seen what that yard looked like. With the amount of time he spent tending to his lawn, this place was an absolute disaster and the complete opposite of home. Mom must have noticed me pull up because she was the first to say hello to me. She didn't recognize me at first. I didn't recognize her myself. Her dyed blonde hair looked fake, and you could easily see the dark roots. While tattoos were probably a good idea back when she had them, not so now. Since she'd left my father, she'd let herself relax. When she finally realized I was her daughter, she hugged me and I could smell the nicotine on her clothes. However, the tearful reunion didn't last long. I immediately asked her who my father was. At first, she tried to lie, saying that my father was my real father. However, I showed a letter from a lab in California. She frowned and finally said that my real father was a mistake, that she loved my father, and my biological father was just a guy she met at the diner where she worked. They had some sort of affair that lasted about a year, but he skipped town one night and was never seen again. About the same time, this balding, pot-bellied beast came out of his trailer. My biological father may have been a mistake, but in that moment I realized that the summer clothes I had chosen that day were a huge mistake. That ugly asshole looked at me like I was a piece of meat. Is this the guy my mom left my dad for? I threw up, and then I left. And just like my mom, I never looked back. I hated my dad. I finally met a boy who survived the shotgun cleaning conversation and took everything my dad could throw at him to make sure he respected me and loved me for who I was as a person, not for my looks. I finally met a guy who could make my heart beat faster, not because I was living in the moment, but because of the time we spend together. All the other boys my father protected me from had girlfriends who got pregnant before they even graduated high school. Some of them tried to be good fathers, but most ran away from their responsibilities. This boy is different. He even earned my father's approval by proposing to me. But who will walk me down the aisle? Who will give me away at my own wedding? Who will be the last person to hold my hand before I become Mrs. Banks Williams? I can't ask that of my biological father because I don't even know who he is. I'm certainly not going to ask my mom's boyfriend, or whoever he is, to do it, because the mere thought of being that close to him makes me nauseous. No, my dad should hand me over to my fiancé. My father raised me as his own daughter. He loved me like I was his own flesh and blood. He made me feel loved and gave me everything he could give a child. He forgave my cheating mom because he loved her and truly believed she was sorry when she was nothing but a cheater. He taught me the difference between love and infatuation. He taught me that love should be unconditional, but that it should also be mutual. He taught me that you should want to do your best for the person you love, but as long as there is the same love in return. My father also taught me the difference between life and existence. Life in the present only lasts a few seconds. It is forgotten before you realize it. Life, especially with a loved one, lasts a lifetime. My father was a wimp and a cuckold, according to some people in the community, but he was more of a man than any of my mom's lovers. Tell me of a man who has the strength to accept that his daughter is not his flesh and blood, but to raise her and love her as his only angel? Well, that man is my father. I hate my father. I hate my father because he died before I could tell him that I love him with all my heart, and I will always be grateful for what he taught me. And I want to hyphenate my name so that everyone knows that I am first and foremost my father's daughter. Daddy, I love you so much. There wasn't a dry eye in sight when Melissa Banks stepped off the runway and collapsed in tears, sobbing at the headboard of her father's casket. Her fiancé, Aaron Williams, rushed to her side to comfort her in her time of loss. It was at that moment that he fully understood his bride and no longer complained about her desire to hyphenate her name in memory of her father. Even the old gossip girls who gossiped about Liz Banks's many affairs with men and Steve Banks' failure to do anything about it looked away with shame. The only word that was spoken was a quiet amen from the pastor. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Cruel and unfair punishment for cheating. I hate unexpected phone calls. I don't like Mondays. I am usually in an uplifted mood after the weekend, and the boring routine of paperwork seems so dull. My wife, Kate, called during lunch to see when I would be home. She was out shopping and wanted to be home when I arrived. Then the phone rang at 2 in the afternoon as I was putting the finishing touches on the client database. I tried to put the handset on the lever and repeat the last few keystrokes. Good afternoon, Dave Marshall. No answer, just lots of background noise and a few muffled voices. Good afternoon, Dave Marshall. Still nothing. I almost hung up thinking it was just kids making nuisance calls. Then I realized it was my wife, Kate. Kate often accidentally redials on her phone. I wouldn't mind $1 for each time she did it. Realizing who it was, I decided to eavesdrop on her shopping trip. My birthday was just around the corner, and I could get some idea of what she wanted to get me. It turned out to be one of my worst decisions that day. Don't worry, my husband is at work and I don't have to be home until 5 p.m. We have 2 hours. That's really nice, don't stop. That was Kate's voice. Of course, it wasn't a shopping trip. The rustling of clothes and moans continued for a few minutes. How long, I don't know. I was in shock. I knew it was a guy by the grunts he was making in response to what Kate was doing to him. I strained to hear what was going on. One part of me couldn't believe it. There had to be a simple explanation. The other, logical part of my brain was telling me it was true that she was cheating on me. I didn't recognize the male voice, so I was pretty sure it wasn't one of our friends. So who was it? Why was she cheating on me, on us? Kate's burst of giggles brought me back to the phone ringing. God, you're in a hurry. Dude, you're the best. My wife can't keep up with you. That's just magical. A louder than usual grunt on the phone brought my attention back to what was happening there. I wanted to reach into the phone and strangle them both. Now the sounds I heard were quiet breathing and the springs of the bed as he lay down next to her and she came. Nothing for the next few minutes, then Kate's voice. My God, you're really recovering fast. Let's see how long you can hold out this time." The guy mumbled something. As the frantic sounds of my wife and lover spread through the phone lines, I finally lost control. I couldn't take it anymore and threw the phone against the wall. It shattered into 1,000 different pieces that scattered like confetti across the furniture and across the floor. For the next hour, I sat there in abject despair, tears streaming down my cheeks. I wrapped my arms around my head and wept for what I had lost. How could she have done this? She never said she wasn't happy with our lives. How long had she been doing this? Was I getting sloppy seconds, and from whom? My marriage was falling apart. She wanted someone else. I, on the other hand, could never share her. I loved her too much for that. I would never be a cuckold. I felt humiliated as a man and as a lover. Her comments made me feel inferior, and it made me even angrier. I decided I would go home, talk to her about it, then pack my bag and leave. Thank goodness we didn't have children. We hadn't been married long enough to have a lot of stuff, so it wasn't hard for me to pack. The house was rented and the furniture was mostly hers. My heart was broken at what I had lost, but I knew I had to be strong to confront it. I gathered my wits, then cleared my desk, getting ready to leave. Just as I was packing my briefcase, there was a knock and my secretary walked in. She stopped and stared at me with my red, puffy eyes. After looking around the room, her gaze stopped on the broken phone. Worry and concern flashed across her face before she continued what she had come to do. "Dave, are you okay? Can I get you anything?" Shaking my head, I whispered, "No, I'm fine. I'm leaving a little early today. I have some private matters to take care of." "Okay, before you go, talk to your wife on the phone in my office. She couldn't get through on your private line." She glanced again at the broken phone, scattered in tiny pieces across the red carpet. "My wife? I don't want to talk to her." My voice went up 2 levels as my anger rose to the surface. "Tell her I'll see her later." The poor woman looked like she had swallowed something nasty while mulling over my angry response. "I'm sorry," she said. "That's what you'd say, but I have to tell her it's urgent, and that if you don't answer the phone, don't bother coming home. This cheating fool demanded that I talk to her. Well, I will, but on my terms. I'll soon let her know that she'll be the one on her ear, not me." Rushing past the receptionist, I grabbed her phone and pressed the flashing red button on line 2. "What? Is that a thing?" "Dave, just calm down and listen and I'll explain everything." My anger was uncontrollable, but I figured I'd give her enough rope to hang herself and then let her know I heard everything. "Okay, explain." "Oh, you did. Now I know you're mad, but you hung up on me a little sooner than I thought. I thought you were going to try to tape what I was doing so you could let me hear it later. Well, never mind." I cut her off. "Did you know I was listening? Did you do it, knowing I could hear what was going on?" "Well, of course I knew, after all. I dialed the number and waited for you to answer before we started. Now I know this is confusing, so let me set the record straight. First, I know about your little affair with Debbie, and I know it's over. It was just so you knew that both could play. Now you understand the pain I felt when I found out. I was stunned. She knew about me and Debbie. How could she? It had only lasted a month, 5 secret meetings. The guilt was too great, so I ended it. How could she know about it? I didn't tell anyone. Debbie, that fool. It was all her doing. Debbie was upset that I broke up with her. Did she tell Kate? It was the only plausible answer I could come up with. "Dave? Dave? Are you here?" "Yeah, I'm here." My anger subsided a little, and my voice was almost back to normal. "Who was that guy you made love to? How could you possibly know about Debbie? Why didn't you just tell me?" Out of order. First, Debbie was a little pissed off that you dumped her and called me with all the racy details. I'm sure she exaggerated a bit, but it was enough that I knew you were having an affair. Why didn't I tell you? Well, I thought the way I chose was more weighty. I wanted you to know that pain can be two-sided. Kate paused for a moment before continuing. As for who he was, you'll never know. That's part of your punishment. Oh, and you won't find out if I really cheated. And if so, who it was with. What do you mean, really cheated? I heard everything going on in our house. I heard you two making love. I heard you telling him how much better he was than me. Well, yes, you did hear some things. But did it really happen? Or did I just play it up to make it seem like I did? Sure, there was a guy there. But did I let him make love to me? Or was it all an act? You have to ask yourself if you think I would really cheat on you, just like I had to ask myself about you. Again, this is part of the punishment. I'll never tell you what really happened. You'll just have to deal with it just like I have to deal with what you did. I didn't know what to say. I knew I had heard everything. Now she was telling me that maybe it was all an act to make me think she was cheating? How to deal with that? If I knew for sure, I could react, but not knowing really left me no choice. Kate broke into my musings, her voice softer this time. Dave, I never said he was a better lover than you. Now, was that a lie too? Or did he actually do things to me that you could never do? I had to think the same thing when Debbie told me about the two of you. I stood there shaking my head, unsure of anything. Was it all real, or was it all a bad dream? I had no answers for anything. Dave, I love you and I want us to stay together, but I couldn't stay with you if you didn't truly understand the pain I was going through. This was my way of solving this problem for me. We'll talk about it when you get home, but right now I have to go. I love you. She hung up before I could respond. What could I possibly say? Later we did talk. I explained everything I'd done and why. She cried a lot and then told me that she could get over it if we were both true to each other from now on. She never told me if she cheated on me or not. I begged her to tell me the truth so I could get past it, but she said it wasn't the right time. 6 months later, things were getting worse and worse. I couldn't get it out of my head, and it seemed like we were going to break up. I even refused to have sex with Kate until she produced a note from her doctor saying she didn't have an STD. She took offense at first, but I told her I wasn't going to take any chances. She finally understood and agreed. It didn't help. It wasn't the thought of her sleeping with someone else. That was something I could deal with. Much worse was the uncertainty. Eventually, I moved out of the master bedroom and into the spare room so I could have some privacy. I couldn't be in the same bed with her without getting angry. We hadn't had sex since this whole thing started. Kate tried to seduce me with lingerie and romantic dinners, but none of it worked. Kate was desperate but still didn't tell me. As a last resort, we both attended counseling. During the first session, the counselor convinced Kate that if we were going to work on this, she would have to tell me the truth. As he put it, it was a cruel and unfair punishment. I know it was painful for her to admit that she had indeed made love to an asshole, but it gave me the closure I needed. She didn't tell me who it was, only that I didn't know him and he wasn't dating me. Dave, if I told you who it was, I know you'd go looking for him. You're damn right I'm going to go looking for that asshole, and when I find him, he's going to regret ever making love in the first place. The main thing that surprised me was how guilty Kate felt about her revenge and how much she had hurt me. That, more than anything else, convinced me that we would eventually get over this hurdle. We did move on and stayed together, eventually returning to a more normal marriage. These days, I am more attentive to Kate, and we spend more time together. She says it's because I don't trust her, but we both know it's because we don't want to risk losing each other. I had one ace up my sleeve that Kate didn't know about. She told me that I didn't know him and that he had never met me. That gave me my first clue as to who this asshole could be. It had to be someone who knew Kate was married and knew about me, but hadn't met me. I knew all her friends, and she knew mine, so it wasn't one of them. My next investigation led me to her workplace. It was probably someone she worked with. I had a business acquaintance who worked at the same firm as Kate, a guy I had helped a few times. He owed me, so I asked him to see if he could discreetly pick up any gossip about her and the other guy. 2 weeks later, he came back with an answer. George, one of the sales reps, had a reputation as a ladies' man, and he hung around Kate. Finally, she yelled something at him about leaving her alone and that it would never happen again. She had done something stupid, but she wanted to save her marriage, not have an affair. You know, Dave, if it were anyone else, I probably wouldn't tell you, but this asshole really pisses me off. He's ruined some good marriages and doesn't give a shit about the people he hurts. I knew that if I did anything, it would come back to me and Kate would never forgive both himself and me. So I huffed for a long time. All this time, I'd been keeping a close eye on the asshole and waiting for my chance. I took the opportunity to get a little revenge on Debbie. An email to her husband describing the mole she had on her left breast and an embellished account of our tumultuous love affair guaranteed that she would regret her phone call to Kate. Funny how she never thought about the consequences of her actions, the fact that she had as much to lose as I did. Good things come to those who wait, and things couldn't have worked out better. To make my revenge even sweeter, it was just about the 3rd anniversary of the phone call when it finally happened. As I waited, hidden by the hibiscus bushes that grew along the driveway to the gorgeous 2-story house, it was dark and cold. It was the home of his latest mistress and her unsuspecting husband. He was having an affair with the wife of one of his firm's partners, and that made him vulnerable. I knew I was perfectly safe, he'd never met me, plus I wore a balaclava to hide my face. The cold penetrated me. To distract myself, I ran the plan through my head again. Wait until he passed me on the way to his car, park it on the street. Quickly get out and grab him by the shoulder. Turn him around, then punch him once in the stomach and once more in the face. After that, it would depend on his reaction. I fumbled for a piece of crumpled paper in my jacket pocket. It reassured me that everything was okay. Anger never really left me, and just thinking about this asshole reignited that anger. At least it warmed me up, chasing away the cold. The partner was in a late meeting, and when he got home, he found George beaten, bleeding, and tied up in the driveway. A printed note pinned to his shirt told of George's affair with his wife and several other women, all the affairs the asshole had had over the last year, all of them named. I stuffed all the clothes and shoes I wore into 5 different dumpsters across town. George found himself out of a job. The police had plenty of suspects among the husbands of other women, but they didn't get to me. It got into the daily papers with pictures of him being put into an ambulance. You can't keep something like that a secret, and with all the publicity, his wife found out all about it and divorced him. Kate kept quiet all week, but finally told me about what had happened to George. I asked her if he was the guy she'd gotten involved with, and she finally admitted that he was. Somebody beat him up pretty good. Too bad it wasn't me. Well, I'm glad it wasn't you. I'd hate to lose you now that we've finally worked things out. Kate curled up next to me and kissed me gently on the lips. I smiled. One part of the smile was meant for her, the other part for the secret I was keeping. I screwed up big time and I paid for it. I'd finally paid it off. Now I could move on with my life. The end? Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.